About 3 years ago, Hyundai surprised consumers by introducing an electric version of their strong-selling Hyundai Kona subcompact SUV. Now, the Kona Electric was pretty intriguing because this was an all-electric small SUV that offered nearly 300 pound-feet of torque, and it challenged Tesla and Chevy for range with its 258 miles on a full charge. Now, of course, over the years, Hyundai has given the Kona a few updates. However, for 2022, they are giving the Kona the biggest update, and this week, as you can see, I'm testing the refreshed 2022 Kona Electric. It has a new styling on the exterior. On the inside, it also got some more tech. Under the hood, it still has the same 201 horsepower single motor front-wheel drive powertrain with a 64 kilowatt-hour battery pack. Now, of course, now that Hyundai has the Ioniq 5, their dedicated battery electric vehicle, for those of you who are looking for a more affordable and smaller long-range EV, how does the 2022 Kona Electric stack up? Stay tuned to find out. So before I show you guys the exterior changes that Hyundai made, I want to go over, of course, what's going on underneath the hood. Now, the Ioniq 5, their dedicated EV, does offer a small frunk. However, as you can see with the Kona Electric, because this was designed to be a gas car first, it doesn't offer any kind of frunk space, which is to be expected. Now, there are no changes for 2022 with the powertrain of the Kona Electric. We still have a permanent magnet synchronous AC electric motor that powers the front wheel. So this vehicle is still only front wheel drive. It still makes 201 horsepower and 291 pound-feet of torque. That's the most torque in the Kona family. That actually has more torque versus the high-performance Kona N that I tested late last year. It all goes out through a single-speed reduction gear transmission, of course. And like I mentioned earlier, only front-wheel drive with plenty of front-wheel drive burnouts. Now, this is one of the most efficient EVs on the market. Hyundai says it uses the same 64 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack, and you'll go a maximum of 258 miles on a full charge. Now, a lot of people have been able to beat that range figure in the real world, which I will be testing. I'll mention that later on during the driving scene. And in terms of performance, this should do 0 to 60 in around the 6.5 second range. In terms of charging, this vehicle will charge basically from 10 to 80 to 100% on a level 2 charger in about 9 hours. And if you guys can find a DC fast charger, which you can see the port is actually right here, this vehicle will charge at a maximum of 100 kilowatts, so which means you can go from 10 to 80% charge on a fast charger in roughly 47 minutes, which is definitely slow for the segment, but it should be quick enough for most of you, especially when you consider the price range of this car. Now let's take a look at the styling of the refreshed Kona. You can see, just like the gas model, the electric version did get a new front fascia. And I have to say, I think the electric version is probably my least favorite in terms of the exterior styling. You can see Hyundai had to get rid of the grille because it just wasn't necessary for the electric version. It doesn't need the cooling. The headlights have been updated. You still have the LED daytime running lights and turn signals at the top, where it is separated from the actual headlight module. You can see you have a reflector style LED. The turn signal here is not a sequential, as you can see, no fog lights in the car, but those are functional vents right there that allow air to kind of create a curtain over the front. The front charge port, as you can see, is right here, and it creates an awkward look. This is why I don't like the exterior or the front end styling of the electric version, because I don't like where Hyundai put the charge port door. It should have been at the side or at the back of the vehicle, like you might find on the Hyundai Ioniq 5. Now, looking at the side profile, you can see this is a very small SUV. I mean, you couldn't even call it an SUV in some countries or some areas because it only offers 6.2 inches of ground clearance, which is pretty low. The battery pack that lines the floor obviously lowers the center of gravity in this vehicle, but you're not going to be taking this vehicle too far off the beaten path. You can see all Kona Electrics come standard with these 17-inch wheels. They have been refreshed. They're riding on two 1555 series tires. And again, these tires, all-season tires, simply do not have enough grip for how powerful this car is. Now, looking at the rest of the side profile, you can see this is only 165.5 inches long. It's a really small vehicle. Its wheelbase is 102.5 inches long. It's roughly almost 20 inches shorter versus the Ioniq 5. So again, this is going to be great for those of you who live in smaller urban environments. Above me, you can see that sunroof is standard on this limited version. It does open. That's something you can't get on the Ioniq 5, but it is optional if you guys go for the baser SEL trim. Now, looking at the rear, you can see the taillights have also been slightly tweaked. I do like the new LED turn signal over here. The reverse light is just an incandescent. The tail lights and brake lights are, however, LED. It basically just looks like a hatchback for me back here. There's also a pretty large electric badge over here. Surprisingly, no blue badges or anything like that you're going to find on some of the newer Hyundai vehicles. that are electrified. Opening up the trunk, you can see no power lift gates available. That's kind of expected in this segment, but you can see cargo space is actually on the small side. This actually has less space, I believe, than the old Accent hatchback at 19.3 cubic feet of space. There is a little bit of under floor storage over here, but you can't even fit something like the charge port door on this. But if you open this up, you can see that's actually where the charge port door fits and hides. There is no spare tire, just a fix-a-flat kit. So that's something to keep in mind. If you fold down the second row seats, it'll expand it out to around 45 cubic feet of space, which is good. But again, it is a lot smaller than some competitors because this is a really small SUV. So the exterior changes were pretty minimal, so let's go ahead and hop into the interior of the Kona Electric. You can see here's the key fob for the vehicle. All Kona Electrics come with Hyundai's Smart Key Access System. It includes remote start on the actual fob, but as you can see, it doesn't have the Smart Park feature like the Ioniq 5 where you can pull the vehicle forward and back. Hyundai does offer their digital key where you could use an Android phone to actually unlock, start the vehicle with just your phone as a key. But again, I use an iPhone, so that's not possible right now. Now, as I approach the vehicle and open the doors, you can see very traditional door handles because remember, this is built off of a traditional gas-powered car. And this limited version that I'm showing you has a pretty nice, safe color combination. The gray with the gray leather interior with the contrasting blue stitching. These seats are an 8-way power adjustment with a 2-way lumbar support. No memory seats, however, but the seats are heated and ventilated, which is definitely nice. Wasn't expecting to find that. The steering wheel is also heated, and basically it makes a pretty nice first impression with the upgraded technology features. Now, as I get into this vehicle, I want to notate that you actually have to fall into the vehicle, so it doesn't give you that, easier, higher step-in height that you expect with a crossover. But once you're in here, you can see it does give you a pretty good view of the road. As I shut the door, the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is built off of the previous generation Hyundai Elantra platform. Now, to start it up, you can see the power button is over here, or it says start stop. It is blocked by the steering wheel, but once you push that, you can see the gauges come to life. They have that nice little sweep. It is a fully digital display. This larger 10.25 inch display is new for 2022 and it looks good. Although I will notate that if you guys go for the SEL, it has a smaller 8-inch display, but it also includes wireless CarPlay. This is a wired connection, but it does take up the entire screen. I have to plug my phone in here. That's where the wireless phone charging pad is. Still strange to me that Hyundai doesn't do wireless CarPlay on their larger screens. They seriously need to fix that ASAP. Now, in terms of the interior materials, you are going to notice that this is a subcompact SUV that's pretty low at the totem pole in terms of hierarchy. Dashboard materials you can see are all hard touch plastic, and there's a pretty cheap feeling material here, although this is technically slightly padded, but it doesn't really look all that high quality. Hard touch plastic over here. On the door panel here, this is also hard touch plastic with that kind of hexagonal texturized shape. This is padded, however, right here where you'd rest your elbows, which is nice. Windows, only the front windows are one touch, automatic up, down. The rears are not one touch, but you do have power windows, of course. Some of the switchgear definitely feels older, not quite as high quality as the newer Hyundais. A few switches over here, a few blank buttons. There's where you can turn off your parking sensors. The steering wheel, you can see, feels nice because it's heated, has nice bolstering, a nice grip, nice feeling leather. You can see there's paddles on the wheel to control your regen braking. There is a tilt and telescoping steering wheel, which offers a good amount of adjustability for range, which is good, so I can get comfortable in this vehicle pretty easily. And then you can see here, when I put the vehicle into reverse, there's the full 360 camera. I'm sorry, the backup camera with parking sensors. Hyundai does not do a full 360 camera, but it does look pretty nice. Graphics and resolution are, of course, good. This screen over here, you can see, is really easy to use. It's very quick and responsive. You can also do a split screen if you guys prefer, instead of the CarPlay taking up the entire screen. There's also embedded factory GPS in this vehicle, which is fine. It's nothing super special, but because it's the electric version, you can see there's also an EV display here that shows you your energy. It shows you charging stations and whatnot. So this is all pretty much what I expect. It's nothing super fancy, but it certainly gets the job done. Down here, there's a dual zone climate control. There's also a driver only mode where it tries to help you save a little bit of range, because remember, the heater will eat up some of the range. Down here, you can see, I mentioned earlier, there's a little door that opens up for the wireless charging port, the USB-A connection over there. This controls your 1-speed transmission. You can see park, neutral, reverse, and drive. The orientation of this takes some getting used to. I definitely was pushing the neutral button to go into park a couple times, or to drive. It's just something that owners, again, will get used to. You have your cup holders here, heated steering wheel over here, your heated seats, heated and cooled seats, a few other empty buttons over here. I'm surprised this one here being loaded doesn't have everything. Push this drive mode selector. You can see there's 4 different drive modes. There's normal, sport, which you can see it changes the look of that, and the range also goes down. Eco, and then if I push and hold the drive mode button, it goes into an Eco Plus mode, which actually turns off the heater. It turns off the climate control, but you can still use the heated and cooled seats and the heated steering wheel. But that's something to know. It's going to, again, favor range, and that's something that you're going to want, obviously, if you're trying to get the most maximum amount of driving range possible. There's another storage area down here, which you can sort of access, and then this right here is padded. It's actually a pretty deep center console. All my camera equipment and my 0 to 60 equipment fits in there, and I can actually close the lid. The seats, the leather feels more like pleather. It doesn't feel super soft, but remember, this is an inexpensive vehicle. I do like how the seats at least look nice with the blue stitching and the gray leather. Above me, you can see there's LED lighting, which is nice. Not really much in terms of ambient lighting in this vehicle. It's a lower end vehicle. You can see over here, sunroof that opens up, LED lighting back here, which is nice. And then the glove box, you can see, is a bin style. It's damped but not lined with felt. But overall, the interior is certainly nice. It's got a small amount of room in here, but at least the visibility is good. Decent tech features, but just keep in mind the Ioniq 5 is going to have significantly more space, but you're going to be getting this car for a significantly less price tag. Now, looking at the back seat of the Kona Electric, you can see this is a pretty small car on the outside, and that's translated when you look at the back seat. There's only about 33.4 inches of legroom back here, which is definitely on the small side. The Ioniq 5 is going to offer roughly 6 more inches of total legroom back here, so for taller drivers, you're going to want that. But I'm not very tall. I'm 5'7", so let me get back here and show you guys the space. I can definitely tell you that it feels tight back here. As I shut the door, you can see I can get comfortable pretty well, but the floor is surprisingly pretty high up. It's because the battery lives underneath the floor of the vehicle, so it's kind of raising up the floor a little bit. In terms of materials, it's hard touch plastic over here. It's basically the same as the front seats. You do have a USB-A charging port over here, a little bit of storage, no rear seat air vents, no heated back seats. Wasn't expecting any of that. There is at least an armrest here that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders. The headroom is taken up a little bit by the sunroof, but it's still not bad for somebody my height. The Harman Kardon stereo, I forgot to mention also, sounds pretty decent for an economy car. It's nothing super special, but again, everything is to a price point. But just know if you need more backseat space, you might want to consider some of the competition. So the Hyundai Kona has been a pretty big success for Hyundai when the company introduced it a few years ago. And believe it or not, I actually haven't had a chance to drive the all-electric version of this car. It's kind of more of a compliance vehicle because it's not available in all 50 states, about 12. But this used to be the quickest Kona you can buy. However, with the introduction of the Kona N, that is now the quickest, most highest performance version of the Kona. But nevertheless, now that I finally have an electric version with 201 horsepower going to only the front wheels, it will be slightly difficult to launch this vehicle. But we're gonna go ahead and give it a try anyways. I'm gonna leave the traction control on because this thing will seriously do a burnout so easily. But we'll go ahead and give it a try here and see what we can do. Still slipping the front tires. Wow, 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds, and it's all electrically, so it's so silent. But you guys, it's interesting how this car will continuously slip the tires even once it's gotten going. So it begs for all-wheel drive, just like the Kona N, the gas-powered high-performance Kona, still doesn't offer all-wheel drive. It's a shame that Hyundai couldn't just jab another motor on the rear axle of this thing to give it more traction. It's an SUV. We want the all-wheel drive grip, but 6.2 seconds is very, very impressive for a vehicle like this. It's just, you can't really launch it hard. Otherwise, when you do, it's gonna smoke out the front tires and you're not gonna go anywhere. So it's gonna obviously slow down the 0 to 60 performance. But I'm gonna try it again on this stretch right here and see what I can get. Still slipping the tires. 6.5 seconds there, so not bad. I'm actually really impressed. This performance is pretty much on par with some other lower cost long range EVs like the Chevrolet Bolt, the Nissan Leaf. This is pretty decent performance, but remember, if you guys want even quicker performance, Hyundai now offers the Ioniq 5, which that model will probably do 0 to 60 about a second faster than this. So that's something to keep in mind if you guys want all-wheel drive, that is also available as well. But let's go ahead and just drive the Kona normally. Every time I put my foot down here, you can feel the instantaneous torque. I mean, this has almost 300 pound-feet of torque, 291 to be exact. It has more torque than the Kona N. And every time my foot goes down, you can just feel it, and you can hear the electric motor whirring noises. It's a nice noise. I like it. This vehicle also feels very nimble. It feels incredibly small. Actually, this is smaller versus the Ioniq 5. So if you're looking for an electric vehicle that's very, very like small for city driving, urban driving, this is about 15 inches shorter versus the Ioniq 5. So it's a pretty significantly smaller vehicle. It's also lighter. This car weighs in at 3,800 pounds, and it certainly feels like that way in the corners. It actually feels like a relatively sporty hot hatch with a good amount of torque steer at the front, however. So it's actually a really fun to drive vehicle. Where the downside is on the Kona N or the Kona Electric is when you drive it on the highway, it's a little bit of a noisy vehicle. See, look at him. Oh, still spinning the tires. Oh my God, that is hilarious. But I mean, you can see this is certainly not scrambling for power, it's just scrambling for traction. But I mentioned earlier, on the highway, this vehicle does have a fair amount of road noise, and that's something that you kind of have to get used to while you're driving. It feels like a cheaper economy car because of that road noise. The ride quality is honestly pretty agreeable. I think it's a great ride quality. Visibility is also pretty good. My Tester, being a limited trim, comes with Hyundai's driver assistance technology features with their highway driving assist, active lane keeping assist. So it's pretty good in terms of the driver assistance. Keep in mind, if you guys go for a base or SEL, it's not standard, it's optional. You have to add that package in. Still spinning out the tire. Oh. Still scrambling for traction. That is so funny. That is just like the Niro Electric when I first drove the electric version of the Kia. This car is seriously a hoot to drive, and it's funny because it doesn't look like a fast vehicle. It doesn't look like it has the ability to roast the front tires. And that's kind of the funny thing about this vehicle. It's a sleeper. You can, squirt around town in it. You can attack some back roads in it. It's actually a relatively fun car. It needs stickier, fatter tires. The economy-minded 215 tires really remind you that this is an economy car. But enough about the acceleration. We all know it's great. I'm going to put the vehicle into eco mode because most of you are probably going to drive it in eco mode. Now, with a 64 kilowatt hour battery pack, I saw a full charge in like 45-degree temperatures at around 267 miles. 267 miles is pretty good. It's actually higher than the EPA's rating of 258. This vehicle has always been able to do more versus the stated range by the EPA. It's always been underrated by the EPA, and that's kind of the beauty. It's one of the most efficient electric cars that you can buy. Hyundai does really good on the efficiency part, basically as good as Tesla. In my week's worth of testing, I have averaged to see that it gets around 250 miles in real world range in these colder conditions. So that's pretty impressive that it does so well in terms of the range. I really like that. I just wish, again, this car had all-wheel drive. It is a smaller vehicle, so you kind of feel that. But around town, it's a great city vehicle, and it also has the long range to allow you to take those longer trips. In terms of the seats, I think the seats are also a little bit on the hard side. I mean, this is the leather interior, but the leather almost feels like fake leather. At least I do have features like heated and cooled seats, a heated steering wheel, which is really nice to have in these colder conditions. You can see the CarPlay over here takes up the entire screen, which is nice. You can also do a split screen, but it's not wireless. I actually might recommend just going with the SEL trim with the smaller 8-inch display, because that's the one that actually gives you wireless CarPlay, which is weird that Hyundai does that. But nevertheless, I'm actually really surprised at how much I like the Kona N. I think this is a really great vehicle. The regenerative braking in this car also is really good. You have 3 different levels of regen braking. It's all controlled via the paddles, and if you pull and hold the left paddle and just hold it, this vehicle, as you can see, will come to a complete stop in this mode. You just have to keep continuously pulling the left paddle, which is not difficult to do. I'm going to show you guys what I mean about the traction control and roasting the front tires. Watch this. Literally left 2 black lines on the road. That's how ridiculous this car is. So yes, Hyundai, please put all-wheel drive in this thing. I can even smell tires. It's ridiculous. But anyways, it's a really fun car to drive. Great city car, great range. And it's a shame that Hyundai only offers this in 12 states. Because if you guys want an all-electric vehicle and you don't want to spend the extra money on the Ioniq 5, this is certainly a viable alternative. So after spending a full week with the 2022 Hyundai Kona Electric, this vehicle is still a rather impressive entry, especially if you guys are looking for a long-range electric vehicle that isn't going to cost an arm and a leg like the newer premium dedicated long-range EVs. The downsides of this vehicle, however, are going to be when you drive this vehicle on the highway. The road noise is higher, the ride quality is good, but you got to sense that you're driving an economy car, especially when you look at the interior, which feels a little bit cramped in the back seat and in the trunk space. But as long as you're okay with that, this is a much better vehicle versus some of the very early electric cars. I'm talking about things like the old Hyundai Ioniq that only offered like around 170 miles of range, although that vehicle did have more interior space. Now, of course, I do wish that Hyundai would offer all-wheel drive, but again, if you want all-wheel drive, they will gladly sell you an Ioniq 5, but just be prepared to pay a lot extra for Hyundai's dedicated EV, because this car here is really affordable. Before the $7,500 federal tax credit, the Kona Electric starts at around $34,000. Add, of course, destination charge to that. This limited version here starts at around $8,500 higher at $42,500. $42,500. Add the destination charge, you're looking at around $43,500. Is pretty expensive, but again, that's before the $7,500 federal tax credit and any other state credits you might get. This basically puts it right at the starting point of the Hyundai Ioniq 5. That vehicle starts at around $43,000. This is the fully loaded version. I would probably skip the limited and just get the SEL with the convenience package for $3,500. That puts you at around $38,000. So you're looking at around 30 grand once you factor in the federal tax credit. But just keep in mind, this is only available in 12 of the ZEV states. You can't get this in all 50 states. So for those of you who live in other parts of the country, you're gonna have to travel to a different state or simply have the vehicle shipped, of course, if you want to get your hands on this vehicle. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2022 Hyundai Kona Electric. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.